Do you like finding comic books for $1? I like finding comic books for $1. And today, I'm going to show you a bunch of comic books that I found for $1. Check it out. Hey everyone, and welcome to the channel. My name's Chris, and this is Northgarden Comics. So today, I've got a bunch of books to show you. And like I said in the intro, these are all dollar books. And this is the first chunk of books that I brought home from the 3-day warehouse sale that was held recently by local vendor Most Wanted Comics. They don't have a storefront, they're just a dealer. They attend conventions, they host conventions, and they have a warehouse here in the Twin Cities, and they opened that up. Really nice space. It felt like a small convention. They had so many books, and they had a ton of dollar books. They had some $2 books, they had a bunch of toys, wall books. It was great. If you want to see kind of the preview of what that looked like before that sale started, I did get a sneak peek behind the doors of that sale, and I'll put a banner up here if you want to click on that and watch that later. But the sale went for 3 days, and I actually didn't get to go to the sale myself until the third and final day, like late morning, early afternoon, and I still came home with a ton of books. So I can only imagine what I would have found had I been able to go the first or the second day. And I will say that I have seen on kind of local social media through different Facebook groups like Minnesota Comic Book Squad, Minnesota Comic Book Exchange, some of the Facebook groups like that I follow, that people were posting different books that they got from the sale on the first couple of days. And there were some pretty cool finds that people brought home. But my haul came from the third day, and I will start to show you those today. I'll have to break it into 2 videos and show you the second pile in another video. But before we get to those books, I do want to pause for a couple housekeeping things. First, as always, I want to say, if you're new to the channel, welcome. Thank you so much for clicking on the video and checking it out. If you like comic and comic-related content like back issue hauls, new comic hauls, Transformer-related topics, then please take just a second and hit that subscribe button. And then for all of you, as you watch, if you see something you like, give it a thumbs up, and please let me know your thoughts and questions down below. The second piece of housekeeping is something that I left my card off camera for, so I'm gonna have to grab that and come right back. Okay, I'm back. The second piece of housekeeping is actually to just highlight for anybody who's here in the Twin Cities or in the area that's watching this video or my videos, there is a local show coming up as I'm recording this weekend, July 31st, 2021. It is called One Crazy Summer Con. This is hosted by the same group that puts on the annual FallCon in like September, October timeframe, and SpringCon. Historically, we've had those two pretty big shows here in the Twin Cities. They're 2 of my favorite shows that I get to go to every year. They're held normally at the state fairgrounds in the education building or in the grandstand. Well, you know, since COVID, things have been all kinds of crazy and upside down weird. And so they're doing some different things. And One Crazy Summer Con is one of them. This is a 1-day show, Saturday, July 31st, 10 to 5. Admission is $5 a person, and kids 9 and under are free. This is actually going to be hosted at a local place here called the Mermaid Entertainment Center. If I can find a picture of that, I will put it up here for you to see. It is like a small hotel convention center. It's got a ballroom downstairs where people will do weddings or banquets and things. But on top of the roof, right in the center, there's a giant mermaid, which I don't know when that place was built. It was like the 50s or 60s. Picture like the mermaid type equivalent on top of a building of the lamp from A Christmas Story, the leg lamp. It has that kind of tacky-ish kind of vibe to it, and yet kind of cool at the same time. So if I can find a picture, I'll post that for you. But if you're local and looking for something to do, July 31st, this is going to be a cool show. A lot of the vendors, artists, creators, and comic book sellers who would normally attend something like SpringCon or FallCon will be in attendance at this. It is a much smaller venue, so obviously not going to be everybody, but I will put links to this show, also to FallCon that's coming up on I want to say September 25th, and they're doing it as a FallCon extra large because it's going to be in the grandstand. But I'll put information down below to all of those things. But did want to give that shout out and kind of call to convention to everybody here in the Twin Cities. That's it for the housekeeping. Now that we got that out of the way, let's go ahead and turn this camera around and we'll give you a look at these books. Don't worry, I'm not going to leave the hot coffee next to the comic books during this whole video, but I was in the mood for some coffee. So before starting filming here, I grabbed myself a cup of coffee, and then when I set it down, it made me think of Duke over at Shanghala Comic Book Clubhouse. So this is my risky homage to Duke. Duke will always have an action figure that stands in the view of the camera and watches over as he does these comic unboxings. Like I said, it's a lot less risky to have an action figure next to your comics than a cup of coffee, because if that figure falls over, no harm, no foul. But if that hot cup of coffee spills over, well, let's just say that we would test the limits of the polypropylene bags that are protecting those comics right now. So just wanted to show that before we get started here. I'm just gonna move this off camera now. Oh, I guess before I do though, I want to make a comment. Fat Nat's Eggs. I've never eaten at this diner, but I've heard very good things about it. I think Nicole, my wife, picked this up at maybe in a garage sale, thrift store, something like that. But Fat Nat's used to be located immediately next door to a local comic shop called Hot Comics and Collectibles. That was their New Hope location, and Hot Comics has 3 different locations here in the Twin Cities. The New Hope location has since moved, but they used to be located right next door to Fat Nat's there. So love this mug, love the name, love that it's a diner style mug, but now I'm going to move it so we can look at comic books. We're going to get started with some Daredevil Volume 1, and you know, right off the bat, it's hard to really explain what I'm trying to collect in this volume. I'm not trying to get the whole volume of Daredevil, but there's really not much I wouldn't buy, particularly when it comes to the lower numbers, just because I love the character of Daredevil. So if I find lower number Daredevils for $1, I'm going to buy them. Especially, by lower numbers, I mean like earlier Frank Miller era and then before that. So I would pick those up. But primarily I'm focused on the Ann Nocenti run, which may sound a little strange because the issue that you're looking at, issue 225, is not part of that run. Ann Nocenti's run did not start until the 230-something issue, after Born Again and things like that, and then ran up until like issue 292, 293, somewhere in that area. That's primarily where I'm focused on, but I don't know about how you collect, but as I start to fill in runs and build out runs, if there are holes or gaps that I can easily fill, then I will start to connect those things instead of just having these pockets. And issue 225 is one of those examples. I have a lot of the issues before that and leading up to the Ann Nocenti run, so figured why not, let me just fill that in. And that's just a cool cover with a vulture. So I grabbed that one. And when you're collecting Ann Nocenti's run even, you do get some other cool little like parentheses or little subsets of collections that you can make in there with, you know, there's the David Mazzucchelli art that's in there in this kind of this around this ballpark of Daredevil. Then you get a little bit later on, you get John Romita Jr. So there's multiple reasons, and there's so many different ways that you can collect any comic book. But Ann Nocenti's the kind of the driver there. But like I said, it continues to evolve and grow beyond that. And sometimes it's just a cool cover buy. But I picked up 225. And then we fast forward, here is 249. That's just prior to the John Romita Jr. Start of his run. This is part of the JR run. Here's issue 273, and that's one of his covers there. And 285. And then 297. That was an oops buy. It's after the Ann Nocenti run, right? So technically speaking, I wasn't looking for it, but I liked the cover with Typhoid Mary, just thought it was cool, did not even consult my CLZ app. And sometimes that can backfire on you, because had I checked, I would have seen that
for the exact same reason, because I like the cover, I picked up a copy of this at some other sale on some other day, and so now I have two. But it was a cool looking cover. I still think it's a cool cover, and now I have two copies of that. Now we shift over, still with Daredevil, but now we're in volume 2 of Daredevil. And again, another example, I'm not trying to collect the entire volume. Offhand, I don't even recall how many issues this went for, but I have read and heard very good things about the Brian Michael Bendis portion of this volume, which started around issue somewhere in like 16, 17, and he wrote through issue 80 something. And for a good chunk of that, Alex Maleev was doing the interior art, and I really like his art style as well. So I have been slowly chipping away and trying to piece together the Brian Michael Bendis run of Daredevil Volume 2. And as a result of this sale, I now only have 3 more issues to find to be able to complete that entire portion of the run, and then I'll be able to read all of it. So at the sale today, I got issue 30, 31, 32, 33. I really like that cover on 36, 40, 42. And I've mentioned this in other videos as well. Sometimes the gaps in between here, it's not necessarily because the seller didn't have the issues. It may be that the condition wasn't so great. So even though we're only paying $1 per book, I know that most of these modern books, if you're trying to fill in runs, if you're patient, you can find them in good condition. I mean, here's a good example. This has got a lot of white on this cover, and I know I've seen this before, and I've passed over it, because with these white books, a lot of times you get kind of that rubbing that happens. Maybe it's from rubbing up against other books when it wasn't in a bag, but it can get kind of, they're not called scuff marks. I don't know what they call it, if it's like ink transfer from another book, but I would rather wait until I can find a nice crisp condition copy like this one here for $1 than to buy one that's kind of scuffed up for $1. So at the sale, they did have some other issues, but like I said, I passed over some of those because I'll just continue to be patient and wait. And then here's the last issue from Daredevil Volume 2 that I got. And I think this is either the last or the second to last story that that Bendis wrote before he left the volume. All right, for this next stack here, it's kind of a mishmash of things. So, Uncanny X-Men number 342, I mentioned this in another recent video, that in addition to logging books that are in my collection in my CLZ app, you know, there are times where you buy a book and maybe I was just excited about getting books for cheap, and I bought some books that maybe weren't the best condition. You know, even though it was only 50 cents or $1, I went against what I normally would do, and I bought a book that was either had a lot of spine ticks in it, or maybe it had creasing or some other damage, visual damage to it that, you know, detracts from the visual appeal of the comic. And so in those cases, I do have a running wish list of books that I'm trying to replace with upgrade versions. Now, I'm not looking to spend a lot of money, right? Because this is not a significant key where it's going to cost a lot of money anyway. But it'd be nice to have a higher grade copy just because you can for cheap. And so I mentioned this recently, that I actually created a separate collection in my CLZ app to track all of those books that I have on my wish list for upgrade copies. And what that allows me to do is I can have one version. Well, you know what? Let me just show you. Let me just show you here, because I have it open on my iPad here. So, how's this gonna show? All right, so this is kind of my CLZ app. Sorry for the reflection and glare there. Over here on the left, you can see where it says Add Switch Collections. It's got a check mark next to that top one. That's just called My Comic Collection, and you can name these different things. That's my primary storehouse for both the comics in my collection and the books on my wish list. All of the, we'll even just say back issues. And then current titles, those are current ongoing things. So when I'm reading, the current Transformers volume or Avengers or X-Men, the reboot of X-Men, anything that's ongoing right now, I actually keep those under current titles. But the one I'm talking about specifically, and what caused me to pull this out, is right here, where I have upgrades and variants. So if I tap on that, notice it says nothing's in my collection, but if I switch this over to my wish list, here are some titles that I've loaded and the individual issues. These are books that I have in my collection already, but I still want to hold out and get an upgraded copy of that. So I put it on my wish list here. And some of them are variants, where some of these are, I have the main like A cover, for example, and I'm looking for an upgrade, but some of them I think I even put notes where I say, well, hey, if I'm looking for an upgrade, might as well see if I can find the variant, because that would be cool to find. So I do that as well. And what this allows me to do is I can really have an accurate record of, yes, I have, for example, Uncanny X-Men number 342 in my collection under that main tab of my comic book collection, but then simultaneously I can have it on my wish list under the upgrades and variants tab, so that way I know that I'm looking for that. Otherwise, it becomes really hard to keep track of and to know, do I have it, do I not have it? And I get a little retentive about some of those things because, for example, if I have this in my collection, I don't want to just show it as on my wish list. But, anyway, so the internal battles. But CLZ, fantastic. Love that they have some of those mechanisms in place to allow you to really customize and cater your database to meet your needs. So this was an upgrade by all that after all that's the description there. This one here, Age of Apocalypse, The Chosen, I was kind of surprised that I didn't have this, but I recently got my second ever omnibus, the X-Men Age of Apocalypse omnibus, and on the back of those omnibus, they usually show you, for the Marvel ones, they'll have pictures of all of the covers of all of the books that are collected in that omnibus. And I was looking that over because X-Men Age of Apocalypse is one of my favorite crossover events of my comic collecting life so far. And it came out when I was in college. I remember going down to the comic book store every week to get the next issue or issues that were coming out in that story. Fantastic. I will do a separate video still on the Age of Apocalypse omnibus to take a look at that. But I have all the single issues, but this was one that was shown on the back cover of that as being collected, and I never bought it. And this is like a who's who from DC or the official guide to the Marvel Universe. Let's go ahead and open this up. Actually, I'll show you. And as I'm doing that, I don't know if you can hear that crinkly, but some of these are actually in really thin Mylar bags. But Age of Apocalypse, The Chosen, little narrative here in the beginning, but then it's really like a guide to all the different characters. And if you've never read this, I definitely recommend the Age of Apocalypse as a story. It, the basic gist was Legion wanted to stop Magneto, and so went back in time and decided he would kill Magneto before he became evil, back when he and Charles Xavier were friends. But anyway, Legion goes back in time. The goal is to kill Magneto. Accidentally, though, he kills Charles Xavier. Whoops, that was a bad move. And as a result, Apocalypse is able to start this war much earlier than normal, takes over, and so you enter the Age of Apocalypse. But, so I definitely recommend that. Sorry for the barking dog sounds you hear in the background there. But, yeah, so I did not have this for whatever reason, and now I do. All right, next up, we've got a seemingly random Incredible Hulk book. I don't actively collect really any of the Hulk volumes, but I did have issues 391 and 392 in my collection from way back when. And for, if no other reason, that's just a really cool cover. And Story-wise, though, this is part 1 of this story called War and Pieces, which brings in X Factor. And loved that first team of X Factor, and so I figured it'd be a fun issue to add to my collection, so I grabbed $3.90. And then I haven't shown any Silver Surfer books in a while, but this is Silver Surfer Volume 3, and this was the volume that introduced me to the character of Silver Surfer and where I first really fell in love with this character. And I collected it on a regular basis for a long time when it was coming out, and then I dropped off, and I'm at the point now where I want to say it went for 146 issues maybe, is what this volume ran for. And I had like the first 75, and then again, you get close to that marker. I had that accomplished, and then I said, well, you know, maybe I'll go up to issue 100. Or at some point I said, oh, what the heck, let's just get all of the issues because they're mostly affordable and findable. And so as I find Silver Surfers, I am piecing together that end portion of the run that, you know, I don't have the issues for when it was beyond where I was collecting it. So at the sale, I got issue 80, and then issue 123, which just, like, again, seems random, but there weren't many Silver Surfers there. But that's a pretty cool cover. Now we go over here. We're in the Ultimate Universe now. The Ultimates, for those of you who don't know, this is basically the Ultimate Universe version of the Avengers. And I have this comic, but sometimes you come across different versions of a comic and you pick them up. And in this case, this is Ultimate Comics, The Ultimates. This was a book with story. It was written by Jonathan Hickman and art by Esad Ribic. And I love Esad Ribic's art. And so it's like the first 12 or 13 issues that tell that first story arc. And that was my first exposure to this team, and I really liked that story. But here's issue 1 in a polybagged version, and the bag is still sealed, so I just thought that was a cool find to find it in the polybag, so I grabbed that. All right, next here we're sticking with the Ultimates team, but this is a different volume. This is the Ultimates 3, or Ultimates Volume 3. Ironically, this book and volume came out before the other one I just showed you, but this is one, creative team is Jeff Loeb and Joe Madureira. I have the first volume of the Ultimates, which was a 13-issue run. Creative team there was Mark Miller, Brian Hitch, and I think the same team came back for Ultimates 2, but it changed up in the Ultimates 3. And I had found issue 1 of this volume at some point and just flipped through it, and it's, like I said, Joe Madureira's art. I really loved his art in the 90s, is where I first got hooked on him when he was doing Uncanny X-Men, and he did some things in Age of Apocalypse. And so, you know, it's fun to pick up those favorite artists whenever you find other things that they've done that you haven't read before. So I had issue number 1, but I was able to complete the volume and get issue 2, issue 3 with this great cover taking place in the Savage Land, issue 4, another great cover with Thor and Magneto, and then issue 5. Let's take a little closer look at this one too. Let's see here. This one came in a resealable bag. Oh, and it's a wraparound. So like I said, it's a wraparound and a gatefold cover. So let's open this up here gently to get a little better look. Yeah, that's the end there. That's cool. So you got Thor, Valkyrie, Cap, Black Panther, Black Widow, Iron Man, and Hawkeye, I think, there. But like I said, love Joe Madureira's art. And then, oh yeah, that's cool. So this was a buy for the art, and I now have the full 5-issue volume, so I'll be able to read that whole thing. So I'm but I am looking forward to that. Should be a good read and good art for sure. All right, last stack of books here. This is one I'm pretty excited about as well. This whole stack, not just this one book, because Ultimate X-Men is another volume I've been collecting, and this is one where I've been trying to get the entire run, just because I love the X-Men so much, and only in the last handful of years that I even come across and start reading any of the stories and the books from the Ultimate Universe. And I figured it's a 100-issue volume. I love the X-Men so much. Why shouldn't I give it a go? I had issue 1 from like Free Comic Book Day years ago, but that was it. So I started piecing that together, and this is another volume where if you're patient and you look around, I've seen it in multiple different places at sales and half-price books locations and other stores where you can find these issues in good condition for 50 cents or $1. So always be patient, always be patient, always be patient. That it more times than not, it pays off eventually. And I don't know, again, if you're anything like me, my wish list is so big, there's so many books that I could be collecting that if I don't find Ultimate X-Men for months, it's okay, because there's other things that I'm going to be finding and putting together. On this sale day, though, I was able to finally complete the entire volume. So now I have the entire 100-issue run, and I'm about 15 or so issues in, and now I can just keep reading and finish the whole thing out. But to close it out, I got issue 71. And I'm not going to say all the numbers because you can see them. Robert Kirkman was writing at this time. It had several different creative teams. Look at that. It's a Michael Turner cover. And that's pretty cool looking there. Cable Part 1. But yeah, Robert Kirkman, Stuart Immonen did certain stories with the art. Ben Oliver, I see his name a lot. I don't know all the creative teams, but it definitely had a rotating team. A lot of different people worked on this book. It's a cool Nightcrawler cover. Into the 80s now. Up on 85. Like that Salvador Larroca. 95, 96, and 97. And like I said, with that issue, I now have the full 100-issue run of Ultimate X-Men. So yeah, first day was able to complete a couple different runs, which felt really good, and then also make some really good progress and put some dents in my wish list with some other volumes like that Daredevil volume 2.
All right, that's going to do it for me, and that's going to wrap up the first half of dollar books that I brought home from the Most Wanted Comics 3-day warehouse sale. I hope you saw something that you liked. If so, don't forget to give the video a thumbs up. Let me know your thoughts and questions down below in the comment section. And don't forget, One Crazy Summer Con, Saturday, July 31st. More information, again, down below in the description of this video. Now, if you're not quite ready for the YouTube fun to stop, I have hand-selected a couple videos here for you to check out. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.